and this is a game that plays 2 or 4 players because this new version of the game is actually going to offer team modes. And if you're not familiar with Mindbug, this is a system that does exist already, and it's a system that I'm a huge fan of, and Mindbug Battlefruits is its own standalone addition to this series. And I've played quite a lot of games of Mindbug, and I've played quite a few versions in the series, and this is a game that I'm a huge fan of, and I really do think this one is a masterpiece in its design because I really don't have anything bad to say about this one, and I only have positive things to say. I'm not saying this game's better than games like Castles of Burgundy or even other games in its genre, but I would say that this game is quite a lot better than a lot of other games in its genre. This is the most streamlined card battler that I've ever played, and I think it also offers the best depth to complexity because there is a ton of variety in this game and a ton of good decisions, and it's all offered with just a single deck of cards, which makes this super affordable, which is just a nice bonus. And for those reasons, this one is also my own personal pick of the week. And I do own the original version of Mindbug, but the publisher was nice enough to send me this newer version of the game, so I'll just go ahead and explain how the game works by just showing you how to play through a round. And the way that you set up is that you're going to be taking 2 Mindbug cards, and then you're going to be giving 2 Mindbug cards to your opponent. I'll come back to how these work in a second here, but these are a huge aspect of the game, and you really want to think about when you use these cards and make sure that you're using them at the best point possible. But something that I love about this game is that you have a whole deck of different types of cards here, but in a given game, you're only going to be dealing 10 cards to yourself, and then 10 cards to your opponent. And if you ever can't play any cards on your turn, meaning that you don't have any left in your hand, and also there's none in your tableau to activate, then you instantly lose the game. But you can also lose the game if you ever take 3 hit points. And the recommended way to track health in this game is just to take 3 cards from the unused cards from the box, and then just put them out in front of each player. And there's no limit to the amount of health you can have in this game because you can also get cards that add more cards into your health. And I'll just give you a quick look at the cards in my hand, and you'll notice that they all have a different strength amount located in the top left corner of the card, but they can also have different keywords, like for example this one's fast and tough, but there are other cards that have other keywords or even different effects that activate based on certain triggers. For example, this one says it activates an ability when I go to play it into my tableau. This is a game that plays over a series of alternating turns where on your turn you can perform one of 2 possible actions. You can either play a card into your tableau, or instead you can activate a card in your tableau. But like I said, there are different abilities and keywords that can modify this and break the rules in different ways. For example, if I was to go first, I would probably go ahead and play this card because not only does it have a high strength of 8, but it's also fast, which allows me to put it into my tableau and then also activate it in the same turn. This means that I can put it into my tableau and then I can choose to attack my opponent. The other nice thing about doing this is that when I attack my opponent, I also gain 1 life. So if I were to go ahead with that, my opponent would have the opportunity to block with any of the cards that they have in their tableau, but since they haven't had the chance to put any cards out yet, the only option is for them to take a damage, which would cost them 1 of their health, and then I would also gain a health because of the ability of the card. But anytime it is not your turn, you have the opportunity to use your Mindbug. So for example, if I went to go play this card, my opponent could say, whoa, 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 stop right there. I'm going to be playing my Mindbug card. And whenever they do that, they basically spend this card to play this card for themselves. And you're not allowed to use a Mindbug on a Mindbug, so there's nothing I could do about this. But now this card is going to be played as if my opponent played it, which means that instead of me getting the benefits here, my opponent is, and they're going to be gaining that health, and I'm going to be losing 1. And you can already see how there's a lot of depth here in deciding which cards you want to play when, because it probably would have been better for me to just hang on to this card and then play it later in the game when both of their Mindbugs have already been used. But because I got Mindbugged, I get to go again, and maybe I want to play this card here, which is fast and tough and also has a strength of 8. And let's just say my opponent didn't want to use up all their Mindbugs so early in the game, so they let me go ahead and play this card, and because it is fast, I get to activate this one immediately as well, and I'm going to activate it in order to attack my opponent. And what's really cool about this game is that my opponent gets to decide if they want to block that attack, or if they just want to take the damage. If they choose to block the attack, they're going to be choosing 1 card in their tableau in order to do that. When this happens, you just compare the strength of the two cards and then discard the one that's lower, and then take into consideration any keywords or special abilities. But because these two cards have the same strength, if my opponent chose to block with this card, then both of our cards would take a damage, and every card in this game just has 1 health, unless it has the keyword tough, which this one does, and in that case you're going to be tapping it, indicated that it's taken 1 damage, but the other card would be removed from the game. Then that's the end of my turn, and then it would be my opponent's turn to either play a card or activate a card in their tableau, and since they don't have any cards in play, they're just going to go ahead and play one of their cards into their tableau. And this one says that it has keywords Frenzy and Tough, and I'll explain all the keywords in a second here. But this one also happens to have a play ability that says they can lose a life, and if they do, they can put any card from any player's discard pile into play. Well, that's really nice for them because they just lost a pretty powerful card that they can now just put right back into play, and since that has the fast ability, well, you can already see all these different chaining effects and depth that this game has to offer. There's a bunch of different keywords, and I'll just explain all of them, even the ones that I've already mentioned, but Fast basically lets you play a card and then activate it in the same turn. Frenzy lets you attack twice if you're able to attack with that card. Hunter allows the attacker to choose which card they want to attack. Poisonous always defeats their opponent, whether or not their strength is higher or lower than them. Cards with the keyword Sneaky can only be blocked with other cards that are also sneaky, so this is really nice if you want to try and attack your opponent and not allow them to block you. And then the Tough cards have 2 health, and like I said, when they take a damage, you just tilt them sideways to indicate that they only have 1 health left. And as you saw, the creatures can have all sorts of different abilities, and some of them can be triggered when you play the card, attack with the card, or when that card is defeated. But the big change here that makes this version of the game different than the previous versions of Mindbug is the addition of this little icon here with the orange crystals, and this one has a number 2 inside of it, which means that when I play this card, I'm going to be putting these 2 tokens onto the card, and then that essentially acts as a timer with one of those coming off on each of my following turns until the last one is removed, and then the ability on that card would be activated, which in this case would cost my opponent 1 life. That's pretty much all you need to know to play Mindbug Battlefruits, and like I said, I think this is a fantastic game. I think it does quite a lot with only just a little, and it has very few components to it. You don't have to fiddle around with different health markers, other than these new crystal tokens, which really aren't all that much, and if you don't want to play with those, you could always get the original Mindbug. This is a game that I highly recommend, and if you do like games like Keyforge, I personally do enjoy this game more than I enjoy Keyforge, and I think Keyforge is excellent. But Keyforge I do have complaints about because, for one, the games can technically just go on forever, and I have had really long games of Keyforge just because we keep undoing what the other player does. Whereas in this game, you're never going to have that problem, and I've never had any other problems either. But I only showed you one of the sets here for the Mindbug Battlefruits, but there's also going to be the Galaxy set, which is going to offer its own unique twist on the game. So if you do want to check that out, you will want to check out the link to the campaign in the description below. Something that's really cool and fun about following the campaign is that they are offering a foiled version of each of the Mindbug cards, and if you follow along with the campaign, you'll get those added to your pledge completely for free. Awesome game here, and if you do want to lock in those foiled cards, I do have it linked down below, and you can follow along to make sure that you get those.